I was talking about what's going to happen in China that no one's talking about, or very few of us are talking about. Once upon a time in 1974, a man by the name of Richard Nixon made a deal with the king of Saudi Arabia and says, here's the deal, we'll protect you guys, but it's going to cost you a little bit. We want to create what they call the petrodollar. So anytime anybody buys oil from you or any of your OPEC members, if you want us to protect you, we'll send our military there. We'll take care of you guys. But here's the deal. Anytime you sell a barrel of oil, people have to pay for it in dollars. It's petrodollars. Capisce? And that's what they did.
China is poised to overtake the US as the world's largest economy, way ahead of schedule. The IMF predicts that by the end of the year, China's GDP, adjusted to the country's relatively low cost of living, will be $17.6 trillion, topping the US. Essentially, that means even though a typical person in China earns less than their American counterpart, they can afford more with their money.
Well, it is official. The United States is now number 2. The Chinese economy just overtook the U.S. to become the largest in the world, and it's really not a surprise here. Interestingly, as the U.S. slipped from being the leading economic power in the world, mainstream media has virtually ignored the story. I spoke earlier with the president of Euro-Pacific Capital, Peter Schiff. I began by asking him why the story is being ignored.
Well, first of all, I wasn't shocked by it. I've been expecting China's economy to surpass the United States. In fact, right now it's only surpassed it when you adjust for purchasing power parity. But I think maybe by over the next 10 years or so, it could surpass it without making those adjustments, just on a dollar level. And I think that will happen when the Chinese abandon their currency peg and allow their currency to rise. And I think it'll rise substantially against the dollar, and that will dramatically improve their economy. It'll improve the purchasing power of their citizens, and it will enable China to truly surpass the United States. And frankly, they might have already done that had they not adopted this foolish currency policy years ago.
The petrodollar. Anytime you buy oil around the world, you pay for it in dollars. Not anymore. And this is what could bring down America. This is what I was talking about that could shock this nation. Remember you heard those stories before World War II in Germany? People going to the supermarket, the grocery stores in those days, with a wheelbarrow full of worthless money to buy what they needed. The same thing may happen in America, not if, but when the petrodollar dies. And the death nail is being banged in right now, because here's what happened. You want to put them sanctions on Russia? Okay. Chinese say to Russia, listen, we're buying your oil, right? Because they export a lot of oil to Russia. But we're not going to pay you in dollars anymore. You could take your petrodollar, America, they're saying, and shove it. We're going to pay you, Russia, in our currency, the yuan. And you're Russian, and you say, but I don't want the yuan. You don't want the yuan, we don't want your oil. But I'll tell you what we'll do. You could we'll buy your oil, and we'll give you yuan, but you could change that yuan anytime you want into gold. Okay. Sell you the oil, give us the yuan. Hey, Russia's buying more gold than anybody, aren't they? That's a fact. That's a fact. Russia was the biggest purchaser of gold of any central bank last year.
The dollar is facing a new threat. China has just launched yuan-backed oil futures, which will challenge the globally used petrodollar. China is the world's largest oil importer. Until now, it's been paying for its oil in dollars. The newly launched Shanghai Oil Exchange will allow China and other countries to bypass the standard petrodollar. It comes the very same week as Donald Trump unveils billions of dollars of tariffs against China. Oil economist Mamdouh Salameh says the broader implications of the new petro-yuan could be a game changer over the long term.
So here we have the article from the Trumpet. It says, why is Russia buying so much gold? And this came out as of last summer, but it's very telling if you read through some of the fine print. It says both Russia and China are stockpiling gold in a bid to cut their economic dependency on the United States dollar. According to Russian state media outlets such as Sputnik News, according to our estimates, there will be a downward trend in the dollar exchange rate in the next 15 years. Financial expert Philip told Sputnik in Germany, says in the long run, it cannot be guaranteed that the dollar will remain a global reserve currency. So here we have an idea that, we have another alternative media or news story in regards to the importance of gold and silver and how it's labeled as a diversification away from the dollar. Why? Because economists in the euro areas doesn't see the dollar being a reserve currency for much longer. So that in and of itself will let you know that the importance of having precious metals is well worth your while, because if you have all these major countries over here just preparing for something, wouldn't it be well worth your while to be doing the same? So,
well, it took a major effort for China to achieve its economic success. Just 3 decades ago, the country was bursting with unskilled labour, and the average income in America was about 21 times higher. Now the nation's taking a global lead. Glyn Ford, who's a former member of the European Parliament, thinks that the US tends to belittle China's growth.
It's been clear that China's economy has been growing very rapidly now for nearly 25 years, but frankly, allowing for where it started as a third world country, it really is a shock to the West and the rest that China's, if you want, in sight of actually becoming the largest economy, overtaking the European Union and the United States. The US has tended to, if you want, be in denial about China's growth to a degree. It assumes that China's, if you want, not going to overtake it.
Now, last year, it was China that surpassed the U.S. in global trade. Now, as we mentioned, it's in terms of goods and services. Are we getting kind of used to the idea that China is, as you mentioned, gradually over time kind of surpassing the U.S. on multiple levels here economically?
Well, I don't know that we're getting used to it, but we're going to have to, because I think ultimately it's going to mean a big diminishment in the standard of living for Americans when the Chinese reclaim their production for themselves and stop exporting what they make to America and stop loaning us all this money. If you look at the most recent trade figures, China just posted its largest trade surplus ever. At the same time, America just posted its biggest trade deficit ever in manufactured goods.
It will change it a lot, because by definition, the petro-yuan is challenging the dominance of the petrodollar. And in doing that, it will impact adversely on the petrodollar and, of course, by definition, on the American economy itself. Currently, the petrodollar is the only currency used to price and sell oil. China knows that, and it wants to gain the same benefit, first by establishing the yuan as an international currency. Of course, it will not unseat the petrodollar suddenly. It will take time, but it certainly poses a real challenge to the petrodollar for the first time since 1973, when the petrodollar was launched.